One of our favorite people here at the channel, as always, is Dan McTeague, the gas price wizard. You can follow him at Gas Price Wizard, gaswizard.ca, affordableenergy.ca. And on this Tuesday, as we speak, Mike, some shocking post from Dan letting us know the price of gas, most of Canada going up 6 cents a liter Wednesday, another 6 cents on Thursday, as everything's kicking off in Iran. Dan, this is the start of what could be a lot of pain at the gas pumps for Canadians.
Big time. And of course, Thursday is not etched in stone because we know the markets were very dramatically lower this morning, and energy prices were going to go that 6 cents. It may actually be a 5 cent. Either way, we're going to look at several days, as long as this conflict continues, several days of increases in energy prices. And unlike anything in the past where we've seen, conflicts of that magnitude, regardless of the outcome, the Canadian dollar has always behaved in a way that would serve as a bit of a hedge, or, if you will, a bit of a cushion. We had the petrodollar because there was a belief theoretically that Canada had the oil capacity and the ability to send to other parts of the world, notably the United States, which is still the largest consumer of oil products in the world. It's not China or India. The idea that, we had the ability to ramp up if we had to. Therefore, Canadians got the benefit. The rest of the world got smacked with high oil prices and had to pay for it instantly. Canadians, not so much. We were probably protected half to a third of those increases, but no longer, because it takes 137 pennies to buy a US dollar. That is 24 cents a liter to the price of gasoline. Imagine what it's doing for every other commodity, and yet you got people walking around saying, oh, it's inflation, it's created by climate or whatever baloney. It's created by VAT policies here in Canada that in this time of crisis shows the depth to which we have traded away security and prosperity in favor of narratives that are extraordinarily damaging to Canadians, particularly when it comes to their bottom line.
Yeah, the price of oil up from $65 overnight to, I think, 71 was the last time I took a look.
And even over that, I think now.
And now it seems to have even gone up. And, it begs the question, Dan, you point out, historically, we've always kind of been insulated by our own, the notion of fuel and oil in our own country. Are we going to see that pass us by this time, do you think? It looks to me like we're going to pay the price at the gas pump like Americans, that we won't be making a big supply difference in this scenario. Kind of position that for us, if you don't mind.
Yeah, look, you're right about the numbers. 65 at the beginning of the month of February was 62, end of January, middle of January is 58. So this ramp up that you've seen to 70, 71, $72 a barrel, likely going to 80 at least. I'm not sure about 100. That's way down the road. It's a reflection of the fact that we're not in a position where we can easily replace lost barrels as a result of interruptions, conflicts, as a result of shut-ins in the Persian Gulf. Although it isn't as important as it was 30, 40 years ago. It's about 20%, 1/5 of the world's barrels of oil. It doesn't mean that they'll stop producing, it just means that they can't get it to the market in an efficient way. And put it in context, the world is now using 105 million barrels a day. That's up from 100 million a few years ago. It's going to 120, 130, despite the climateers out there who believe that this was the end of peak oil and whatnot. Nothing could be further from the truth. The world's going to continue to use more hydrocarbons. The question Canadians, had to answer was, do you want to shut yourself in? And do you want to play the woke game of DEI and net zero, or do you want to continue to prosper? And whether Canadians realize it or not, they chose the wrong side. They chose to continue down this road of grifting and destroying our energy sector, our number one most prosperous export that we could have, and would have certainly shielded us in these kind of circumstances. So, I say to folks here today, if $71 a barrel works out to 66 cents a liter, imagine if 71 would have worked out to maybe 50 cents a liter. So that'd be 13 cents less than we're paying today. The Canadian dollar matters, and because all commodities, whether made here or not, are priced in U.S. terms. If you can't make sure that your energy gets to proper markets that want it. And by the way, it wasn't just the United States. We had 12 countries, some of our best trading partners, come to us, including Germany, including Greece, Lithuania, saying, "Hey, listen, can you give us some natural gas and oil?" And we said, no, there's no business case for it. You can sort of see them walking around with their little placards, not plastic, of course, saying, no, we shouldn't be doing this. Well, if you take that position, you got to realize there's a cost. It's a cost most Canadians can't afford today as they line up food banks and, become the next entrance to our growing industry in this country, 10 cities.
Dan, with your in-depth knowledge of the petroleum industry in this country, I know you've talked about also the rise in price of diesel. How soon will that be passed on at grocery stores when we know food insecurity is such an issue in this country now?
Well, it has, because we layered on made carbon taxes. The same green policies have given you a weak Canadian dollar. And as I mentioned earlier, not just direct imports in the United States in colder months, but also, of course, the commodities themselves, again, are benchmarked in U.S. terms. So a weak Canadian dollar hurts us, and then we're starting to pay for that. Diesel prices, which are going up 13 cents tomorrow, probably another 10 to 13 cents a liter on Thursday, will certainly make their way and their presence felt in terms of what we used to know a few years ago as fuel surcharges. That's coming. And I would expect that it's going to happen in a nanosecond. It'll happen already. And so next month, we will be seeing the inflationary pressures continue to roll heavily on food prices. Now, I'm no expert as the food professor Sylvain Charlebois is, but we've done work together, making the first point rather salient and true, and that's that carbon taxes, in fact, have increased the price of food. But it's okay. Let's be trendy. Let's be green. Let's be cool. Let's worry about CO2, the giver of life. Let's tax the daylights out of it so that we can make money on thin air, including, dare I say, people like Brookfield, who've done extraordinarily well, and Mr. Carney's connection to that by selling carbon credits, basically making money out of thin air, literally.
That is something that I think gets passed over. The carbon tax credit benefits quite often a sector of business you don't expect it to. From a diplomatic perspective, Dan, and you've had this experience in the energy field for sure. We look at frightening moments right now ahead of us, potentially in the Strait of Hormuz. We're looking at tankers being attacked right now in this Iran affair. What do you see some of the diplomatic pitfalls are going to be as this war unfolds?
I don't see any resolution to this until Iran is no longer in a position to retaliate or to do harm to its neighbors, as it has done to Saudi Arabia, to Kuwait, as it has done to Iraq, as it has done to Bahrain. I mean, this is a dying regime's last gasp at striking out at anyone and everyone after 47 years of terrorizing the world and funding its oil assets, funding the proxy wars, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's the Houthis, whether it is all sorts of other organizations single-handedly, and death to America chants, make many friends doing that, by the way. But I suspect that the only way we're going to see an end to this is that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and its acolytes are going to have to throw in the towel, and a new government will have to emerge in the country. And if that doesn't happen, then this struggle will go on. I understand and appreciate the Americans don't want boots on the ground, which is understandable, but sooner or later, one's going to have to fish or cut bait. You can't go in half measure and just sort of leave it up to the people who have no alternative, don't have weapons, can't fight even despite the depleted power of the regime. You can't expect them to be able to take over without some kind of intervention. I'm not sure how that's going to happen, what that means. I'm certainly not advocating for it, but I don't see any other alternative. You can't do something half measure here. And I think that's so the Trump administration has to make a decision on, and it will cost lives. The question is, does it bring us to the brink? I don't know. What's the extent of Chinese involvement in this, in providing and supplying Iran? Now, we've made a statement, our prime minister did, that he supports the United States and Israel's attack on Iran. How is it that the same regime is now getting the benefits of Chinese intel and help to try to push back on the Americans and the Israelis? And when we're prepared to do a deal, as if to say that, we have to have a new strategic partnership with a bunch of thugs who want to become the world dominant power. I'm very worried about this geopolitically, and from not an energy point of view, but from my old days when I was in foreign affairs, representing the country abroad and Canadians abroad, saving their lives abroad, this does very much concern me. I've been to China. I know how they behave. And the idea that we could somehow thumb our nose at Donald Trump and say we're going to jump in bed with China is the worst of all possible decisions, and it's going to have far-reaching geopolitical consequences for the country, as evidenced by what we're seeing here just in the past 24 hours.
Dan, with your depth of knowledge of how the world works, but as you just mentioned, and energy, there was a story that came out on this Tuesday that's saying India has about 3 weeks supply of crude oil and oil stocks. How common is it for a lot of countries to have not a fairly limited supply, and they rely on deliveries on a monthly basis to keep those supplies going?
Yeah, the world's economies, especially the big ones, have relied on this idea that you could somehow create a strategic petroleum reserve or have several months of reserves. And this was a classic misread by people in the marketplace who simply think, oh, there's too much oil out there, everything's just fine. They're now realizing just how ridiculous that was. The world is seeing a major draw on oil inventories, and there is no substitute for oil. I don't give a damn if you're building an EV. It still takes oil and coal and other things to refine it, to process it. From everything from your rare mineral to forestry to mining to agriculture, all requires diesel, all requires hydrocarbons. It's how you use it. Of course, it has to be more responsible. Nations that are demonstrating that their reserves are depleting rather quickly signals, the falsehood of the past 10 years in which we sort of danced around the idea that the world doesn't need it anymore. We can bury it in the ground. We heard that for the past 10 years, and now it's put a number of countries in a very vulnerable position, including Canada. And so I think India has very few choices. Too bad Canada doesn't have an extra couple of pipelines that can continue to send tons of its oil to the rest of the world, done in the highest fashion that's available to the world.
I like the way that Jim and I just
we were
paused,
like, yeah.
We paused and look at each other like, yeah.
A pipeline, what an idea.
It's, if you keep coming up with these novel ideas, Dan, I'll tell you.
Yeah, the order of Canada's coming my way.
We put in the nomination.
Yeah.
One of the things that maybe, and this is just being an average Canadian and a guy who doesn't have the background in defense or in I've got media background, which makes me qualified to know basically nothing. But it does frighten me a little bit that some of the major customers of Iran are some of our biggest threats: China, Russia,
North Korea.
Are we a little afraid of pissing them off over all of this and shorting them on fuel? That might instigate further negative interaction with these countries, no?
Well, there's no doubt that there are real threats to these countries in terms of their supply, as they used to rely on the Venezuelas and the Iraqs and the Irans and Russias of this world. But this is where Canada can shine. It has an extraordinarily good track record in terms of its democracy, in terms of its labor standards, in terms of its environmental standards. By any measure, we produce the best oil in the world, and yet we still have a coterie of people. And you can pretty much know who they are. Those who voted Liberal, those who voted NDP, voted Green, voted Bloc, who believe that we're skunks. We've done terrible things. We're doing terrible things. We're not the solution of the world unless we basically, choke ourselves. We, as Archie Bunker would have said many, many years ago, we go stifle ourselves. There's people who actually believe that Canada should not be doing any of these things, and that permits and gives power to the wrong people to exercise and wield enormous, impetus when it comes to geopolitical matters. Oil, energy matters. I didn't create affordable energy because I was trying to be cute. It means when you fool around with energy, the basis on which our society thrives, there are a number of outcomes that can't always be calculated, but there is today. Iran has been able to use its energy prowess, as has Russia, to clobber and to push its very draconian, anti-democratic, anti-human agendas. And so people really need to wake up. If not, then maybe the Tragically Hip's song, The 100th Meridian, Gord Downie got it right. A generation so much dumber than its parents came crashing through the window.
Last one for me, Dan. President Trump had indicated to the Pentagon and to the media that he believes this thing will last 4 or 5 weeks minimum, maybe longer. For Canadians worried about the price of the pump, how high could a liter go? 160, 180? What are we looking at?
Well, look, Ontario right now, we started the weekend off 137, going to 143 tomorrow, 144, going to 140, 46, 48, 49, 50, likely by Friday, maybe $1.55 by Sunday. Sky's the limit. 175 in Ontario, near $2 in Quebec, Maritimes 190. BC, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, likely back to 165, 170. Interior BC, 180, and Vancouver, $2 a liter. So yeah, it all depends on how long this goes, but I don't see a resolution here. And it's the first time, by the way, I think a war has been tried at least by bombing alone. I'm not sure how far that works. Iran is not the Gaza Strip. Yeah, you can pummel that, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of targets, and Iran is not Iraq. It's 3 times stronger, 4 times the population. So I think this is, conservatively speaking, several weeks before we get some kind of resolution. Someone is going to have to yell uncle. I don't think it's the fanatics that are going to do that until every last one of them is contained.
That is something that I think sits at the surface of our fears, that this is not an easily relented regime.
No.
It's so funny, Dan, you put into perspective something that I'm going to take away from today's discussion, and I hope that I'm right about it. Canada's out there. We do a lot of virtue signaling. We want to get out there and help the world. We seem to know what's best for the world with the environment and, human rights and everything. But the truth is, if you take a look at the center of power and the center of conflict over power in this world, it revolves almost exclusively around energy rights and mineral rights. Canada is so rich, allegedly, in this regard, that if we really wanted to make a positive impact on the world, it could be through our oil. Simply through our oil would put us into a power position to have the kind of clout in these scenarios.
And a position to help countries.
And to actually help countries and have a seat at the table of negotiation.
Yeah.
Until we do that, we're really just out there with air burgers.
Yeah, it's frustrating, Dan.
Well, it's frustrating for you. It's been frustrating for me. I mean, I've had to try to convince people of the wrong of pursuing this idea that we could somehow stop our energy when so many people around the world said, what happened to Canada? A great little country that snapped, lost its way, decided that it was going to, shut down the very things that makes it tick. I mean, look, this is a very prosperous country by other standards. It wasn't always that way. A generation ago, we faced the Great Depression, and before that, some of the most inhospitable conditions in which to live and thrive. But we've done so by harnessing and managing our energy. The fact that we could do it for ourselves and we could do it for the rest of the world, but at the last second decided to go woke and go stupid, really means that we've done no benefit for anyone else in the world, and we certainly harmed ourselves. The next generation knows full well they've been rooked. And it's the first time my generation has done something to damage the future prosperity of our children and our grandchildren. I personally believe we should be ashamed of what we've done, because it's very bad policy. It's time to admit it, get those damn elbows down, and start dealing with what the world wants, and to restore our integrity internationally, not just our ability to, punch above our weight militarily, which we can't do, but to actually give the world that which it needs, a very strong supply of energy that is virtually limitless, for which the rest of the world can prosper, and Canada can continue down this road of better promise for the next generations.
He is Dan McTeague, the gas price wizard. Follow him on social media, affordableenergy.ca and gaswizard.ca. Dan, as always, we appreciate your insight. You are the best of this, and we appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much, my friend.
Mike and Jim, thanks so much for this. Great to be here. Terrific.
Mike, what Dan said was both informative and depth, but it's sometimes a little scary as a Canadian. And when he starts throwing out numbers, $1.80, $2 a liter, no end in sight, it could be a very tough spring, summer for Canada.
But it's deeper than the price of gas. I mean, what Dan is always about, and I think probably we often are as Canadians, is our pride in our energy. And we have no means to provide that energy to the world. And at a moment like this, it could really be the difference between, helping a whole nation that needs fuel and even offsetting what it costs us as a nation, but we don't have the option. And that's the deeper thing as a Canadian that's disturbing. What's going on in Iran is definitely disturbing.
Yeah.
But what's happening here at home, we have kind of left ourselves with no hands.
Here's the irony of all of this. Prime Minister Carney just capped what he felt was a hugely successful trade mission to India.
Yeah.
He's in Australia now. Imagine getting on the phone to Indian officials saying, we understand you're going to run out of oil in a few weeks. We're all going to load up some tankers and send some to you. But he can't do that.
It's not an option for us, right? And then now we're hearing, as we take a look at the Strait of Hormuz, the situation there has already begun.
And it's dire. So for people who don't understand, the Strait of Hormuz, which 20% of the world's oil goes in and out of, it's 33 kilometers wide but the ships, you're basically 12 kilometers going in or out of the strait from the Iranian coast. Insurance has gone up 150,000 to 200,000 per ship if you can get insurance. A lot of the insurers won't even insure these ships to get out of the Gulf, the Persian Gulf.
And the problem is 150 ships are already piled up.
Yes.
Trying to get into the, trying to make its way through the Persian Gulf. And they're just waiting for insurance and clearance to go through. Meanwhile, damage is already happening. So the insurance companies are saying, okay, errant missiles, targeted missiles, targeted attacks are already something that we have to take a look at. We can't ignore it. So I would imagine a lot of those ships will just sit there with nobody prepared to insure them.
Yeah, I'm just checking it right now. The price of oil, it's going up by the hour because of everything going on a barrel. And as Dan said, it's the diesel. It's for your delivery to your grocery store. Air travel will be affected. It's going to filter down to our everyday life.
If it reaches $2 a liter in Canada, Canadians become immobilized. There is a point at which you cannot use your car. There is a point at which you can't afford the groceries that are coming in that are now being transported.
What about travel? Forget it. You can't go on a getaway.
No, air travel. I mean, it's to that point. Imagine what it's costing Carney right now on Canada. What's it called?
CanForce One.
CanForce One. I don't think that's cheap on fuel.
Well, no.
And with every kilometer and every hour passing, it's becoming a more expensive trip to Australia.
Yeah, and then he's going to go to Japan. Then he's flying back home. We are in.
So he's using all the oil that's left. Okay.
But Mike, we're in dangerous times, and as Dan mentioned, and all the experts, and even the U.S. administration are begrudgingly admitting this is not a quick fix because of what they're dealing with. We've seen already the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia was hit with a drone attack from Iran. Yeah. They're hitting refineries in the Persian Gulf. A lot of the liquid natural gas and oil refineries in parts of the Gulf have shut down completely to prevent future damage. Right. This is just the beginning. We just started, and we're already going, we're feeling it.
And I don't know if that's sort of reactionary, but just, the price of gas went up already this morning. And I meant to ask Dan, how does it happen so damn fast?
Well,
but he answered the question. Oil reserves are not what people think.
Yeah.
There is only so much oil reserve in a country at the price they bought it at, that price per barrel. The next price per barrel, they try to average it out as best they can over a period of time, I would imagine. But the next price per barrel is what happens just weeks down the road at the pump.
As a Canadian, it frustrates me to think, Mike, if we just had one pipeline from Alberta to the BC coast, what a difference it could make for those countries desperate for our oil and gas.
One pipeline.
Just one pipeline.
One refinery.
And what it could mean for the Canadian economy.
I have great news, though, Jim.
Yes, Mike.
We have all the ports that we need, and they'll be in great shape at the time that we get to that pipeline.
I can understand, I love the environment and I love nature. And I get that they were trying to be, hey, we want everything to be great and no carbon, but the world doesn't work with your plans sometimes. And sometimes it's good to have, the reason you have insurance is, God forbid something happens to your car, your house, you're covered. The reason you build a pipeline from Alberta to BC And maybe for a while it doesn't do much business, but at a time like this, it would be going 24/7.
Jim, we're not on the magic school bus. We're on the highway to hell. We need to wake up here.
And Dan's, he's quite right that now we're in a position as a country where we have this precious resource that so many countries around the world are desperate for. How do we get it to them?
It's a great question.
How do we?
There has to be a solution. This must be a wake-up call.
Well, it isn't. How is it not?
I don't know, but I mean, I think as Canadians, Jim, we have to push as individuals. We have to push at the constituent level and say, I'm paying too much for gas. I'm worried that we're not going to have jobs. We're paying too much for food. We need our own oil again. We need our own resources again.
As an average Canadian who has basic needs, we're not talking about traveling to Dubai to shop. You're not talking about an all-inclusive vacation somewhere or buying a $200,000 Escalade. You're talking about a minivan, your kids in school, food on the table, and being able to drive somewhere basic. The most basic things as a Canadian are now going to be very difficult.
As the middle class shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, it's things like this that are doing it.
And you feel helpless.
Yeah.
You feel helpless. You can see that we have this massive reserve of oil sitting in the ground. And as a country, we're not able, we don't have the infrastructure, the ability. Even if we start building a pipeline now, realistically, how many years is it going to take before it hits the coast of BC?
You know what? If we really got to work on it, if we really got to work on it, Jim, we would have it done in 12 to 17 years.
Like the
LRT?
Yeah. So, the bottom line is here we are in early March, and even President Trump, in his most optimistic, is saying this is going to take us well into April, a best case scenario. And that means the aftermath of this is going to be felt by all Canadians. Think about a family in March break. Florida's out, right? Yeah. Cuba's out. A lot of people in Mexico's out. There's a lot of places you can't. And then you're like, I'm staring at all this gas prices. Kids, we're going to play in the backyard this March break.
But this is a perfect time for us to remember, and this will give you some hope, Jim. Elbows up, buddy.
Elbows up.
That this is the moment where I look back and I think to myself, okay, this is not a product. This war is not a product of our government. But at this moment, we realize how much yapping we've done and how exposed we've made ourselves in that process.
Now, here's the interesting thing about all of this as we speak on this Tuesday. For the last few days, Mark Carney was on a trade mission in India, did not speak to reporters, not a word, even though there was a lot of questions from all reporters there who were there. And then now they've been told now they're in Australia. He's going to do a Q&A news conference on Thursday, which will be fascinating because think about the questions. Right away, he went all in with his chips and back to USA, back to Israel. Okay. Yeah. He's got some of his own MPs are pushing back against that. There are still problems with India and the Sikh community in BC, and that has to be answered. And now there's questions about what are we going to do as a country if oil hits or the price of gas is $2 a liter?
Yeah, he might want to just stay on his world tour because
but eventually he's got to speak
touching down in Canada,
the Canadian media, and answer some questions because even the most pro-liberal, pro-Carney reporter and journalists are like, wait a second.
Where are we on that?
Where are we in this? Yeah. We have questions, and you have a moral obligation as the prime minister to answer these questions because Canadians, quite frankly, are concerned, and they would like some answers. That's not too much to ask.
One of the ones that made me chuckle, and it's hard to chuckle at the news right now, but I noticed Trump gave a really interesting sort of update on where things were with the war in his own very special way, and at the end he said, "Okay, I'll take a couple questions." And one of the reporters went, "Yeah, nice story. What about the Epstein files?" And he went, "I'm not talking to you. I don't know who let you in. Next question." So it's interesting, but he, when it comes to speaking to the media, you have to do it whether you like to or not. It's just.
It comes with the territory.
Yeah.
There are certain jobs in certain roles in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do interviews and speak to the media, whether you like it or not. That is part of the pay package. Now, in future shows, Mike, we're going to get into how this all started, potential outcomes. We have future shows about what's going on in Iran, in the Middle East right now. But today we just want to talk about right now how it's affecting Canadians. And we're, as Dan so eloquently mentioned and explained, we are going to get hit hard at the gas pumps and at the stores in the pocketbook in the next few weeks until this is sorted out. And we don't know when it's going to end.
People are going to wonder where we stand, okay, Jim, on all of this. And so I will just say this. To the lives being lost in this scenario in the Middle East right now, on any side, our hearts go out. War is nothing anybody wants, but in the analysis of it and in the discussion of it, we may put that aside on occasion. We shouldn't. No. Everyday lives will be lost.
Absolutely.
Every day lives will be affected, not just in Iran, but, wherever somebody is lost, a family remains. And of course, the regime of evil in my heart really did need to be usurped in some way before more people in that society
Mike,
were killed and hurt.
I hosted an event Monday evening that featured a lot of Iranian Canadians, proud Iranian Canadians, and they were emotional just thinking about what's going on. They're talking 45, 50 years of family members being stuck there, wondering about them, praying for them. This, if it brings peace and prosperity and democracy to Iran and they're back to what it was before the oppression, for a lot of Iranian Canadians, they've been praying this for decades.
Well, that a new prosperous life is the result of this, of course, is our desire too. Thank you.
Thank you.